So first up we have breadcrumbs. Well, what is a breadcrumbs? It comes from the story of Hansel and Gretel and really showing users where they are, leaving that breadcrumb trail to tell people where they are in the website. You can see an example here with home outdoor lighting is the category. The subcategory is C7 bulbs and cords, and the product is the multi-25 replacement lamp. So you can see above with online marketing courses and SEO training, internet marketing home being market motive. These are both examples of breadcrumbs. So there's different types of breadcrumbs. There's path breadcrumbs, attribute breadcrumbs that categorize the page that you're on. We're looking at mainly location-based breadcrumbs that show the user where they are in the website hierarchy, and these are very useful to search engines as well because it serves as anchor text and gives some idea of the hierarchy of the website. So you can see another example here with Toys R Us. Home would be the first level, action figures would be the category or second level. Third level would be cartoon and comics, would be the subcategory, and then the Spider-Man action figure would be the actual product or page in this case. So why are these so important? Well, they serve as anchor text for your website. Again, they give Google those signals of relevance as to what the page is about. It's good for navigation usability, telling your users where they are on the website and helping them find their way around and shop a little bit easier or navigate the site a little bit easier. It's used also directly in the Google search results now. You can see the examples below where there's toys and top picks by age when we get the results from Fat Brain Toys here. So it just really helps search engines understand your site architecture a little bit better. It's a wonderful best practice. There's lots of SEO benefits and lots of navigation and usability benefits here with breadcrumbs. It's somewhat important to optimize with your targeted key phrases. You don't want to go overboard here. Internet training home might be an example of going overboard. We might want to just make that home, but we could go either way on some of the pages. We talked before about using reverse breadcrumbs for titles, and the same holds true here. We want to use the reverse of our title tags for our breadcrumbs. Using the greater than symbol or the pipe. These are some of the best delimiters for breadcrumbs. It's good to use, again, the reverse navigation of your title tag, and here's a couple examples of how we would do that. So overall, keep those breadcrumbs in there, make sure you have your anchor text, don't go overboard, and let users know where you are on the site. This is a very strong signal for telling the search engines what your information architecture is and what your pages are about. The next section we're going to look at is subdomains versus subdirectories. This is a question I get so many times in a large organization. Should we use a subdomain or a subdirectory? For a while, subdomains kind of were stronger in some regards. I see these as about the same at this point. Sometimes it's necessary to use a subdomain, and if you have strong internal linking to that, it can be a little bit stronger than a subdirectory. For sites that are targeting geo areas, if they're only targeting 5 or 10, sometimes this can be good. A good example of use of subdomains would be Craigslist. They use SF Bay, they use Miami or southflorida.craigslist.org, and they may have a couple hundred based on their areas, and they could have used subdirectories probably, but it is a very large site in that case. Most of the time, subdirectories is the solution unless you're just targeting a few subdomains, and it's mainly going to be determined by the size of your site as to if you want to use subdomains. Most of the time, you're going to be fine with those subdirectories, and there's not a lot of difference between them at this point. It's more a function of the internal links and the way the link equity flows throughout a subdomain and a subdirectory. So again, this is how you can check if you have some subdomains. A www is obviously a common subdomain, but you might have cities like Craigslist does, boon.craigslist, and you can see I checked with the site command star.craigslist.org, and that shows me all of their subdomains. So I can get an idea of the number of subdomains that they have up. If I'm doing a site audit and I want to see if a site has a lot of subdomains on a large site, this is how I would find that information. The next domain dimension issue we want to take a look at is canonicalization. And this is the idea that there is multiple versions of a page at different URLs. Inconsistent canonicalization or lack of canonicalization. If I have mysite.com and mysite.com/home.php, these are probably identical pages that are indexed twice. So we want to canonicalize those and make sure that the search engines are seeing those as a single URL. So the way that we do that is with a rel canonical, with 301 redirects, with mod rewrite, and most importantly, choosing one version and sticking with it. Personally, I like the non-www version of a site if I'm going to start a new site now. With the old site, if I already had www, I would stick with that. But pick one or the other. You can set it in Webmaster Tools. That's one way you can do this, or you can use mod rewrite and 301 redirects. It's a little technical for today's conversation, but a rel canonical and a 301 redirect are a couple of the ways to handle this situation. And when we're talking about rel canonical versus a 301 redirect, 301 redirect and Apache mod rewrite on an Apache server, this is my preferred way. Sometimes it takes a little bit more effort, but it's questionable as to if rel canonical passes the entire amount of link juice as a 301 at the same level. It's probably about the same thing. This is, of course, speculative, but I would choose the 301 redirect as a better solution over rel canonical. However, rel canonical is easier to implement and may take less development time. So, while I would say the best practice is the 301 redirect, rel canonical is certainly a close second, and you need to use both of these across domains and subdomains to make sure there's consistency. The biggest thing here is consistency in the way that you link, in the way that people link to you, and if they do link to you incorrectly, if they link to your www version and you don't use your www version, you want to make sure that you're properly 301 redirecting that or using rel canonical to pass that link equity along to the right page and the domain as a whole. So if you have two URLs with duplicate content, an example here is with a tracking URL size small, you would just implement rel canonical with the link rel equals canonical and then to that main non-tracking URL page. This is the solution to tracking URLs that can potentially cause a lot of duplicate content, is the rel canonical. There are solutions here to do this with mod rewrite that we'll look at as well. As I mentioned, you can set the non-www or www preferred URL structure within Google Webmaster Tools, and you can specify your preferred URL structure within your sitemap so that you're always linking to one or the other so that you don't have those canonicalization issues. So stick with rel canonical, 301 redirects. These are going to help you to make sure that you're consistent in the way that you refer to your domain. One of the most important tools on your domain for SEO is your sitemap. And we're going to talk a little bit about why that sitemap is important, the different types, etc. But you want to start with keeping the sitemap at /sitemap. You can see we have no extension, again, extensionless URLs. Our sitemap says sitemap in the title, in the heading tag, and in everything we link to at the bottom of the page. On every page in the domain, it says sitemap and links to this page. We also have an XML version of this page. The sitemap is the wedding chapel, if you will, of the keyword research and information architecture marriage. Keyword research is married to information architecture and how you lay out and organize your site. You have to do that keyword research first, and then you do your site organization, and the sitemap's kind of what ties that all together. You're going to group those keywords by category and subcategory according to the way that your keyword research lines up with that. So this is going to create the information architecture for your site, and then from that you'll create this sitemap. Now it's important to note that the XML sitemap is different from the user-friendly on-site HTML sitemap. I mentioned that you always want to have it at /sitemap, and then the XML sitemap you actually submit directly to Google. And both of these things are going to help to give Google some very strong signals as to the information architecture, the hierarchy, what level in that pyramid the page within your domain is located. So we want to send those strong signals about relevance and what the page is about with our breadcrumbs and with our internal anchor text. And the sitemap ties together that information architecture and leads the robot or spider throughout your site in the proper way so that you make use of those crawl cycles. There's actually several sitemap types. Of course, HTML being the one that's visual to your users, XML being the one that we submit to the search engines via Webmaster Tools. We can also submit video, image, news, different document types of XML sitemaps. So you can look for that within Webmaster Tools. It'll be on the left-hand side under Crawl, Sitemaps, and then on the right-hand side you'll see the Add Test Sitemap button. So when you're going to create your sitemap, the first thing you want to do is create that proper information architecture based on the priority, based on where you want the search engines to see an individual page. And then we're going to spider or generate that XML sitemap, create a HTML sitemap index. You might have multiple HTML sitemaps if you have a large site. You might only do 1 to 400 links on that first sitemap and then have some sub-sitemap pages. So you're going to create those sitemap subcategories where necessary. Now you can sign up with Webmaster Tools. Bing also has Webmaster Tools that you can submit to. You're going to submit that feed and then you're going to optimize that feed after it's created. The XML is going to be completely different. It's going to look a little bit something like this. We're going to set the last modified, the change frequency, and the priority. So you can see these are the three things that we really want to pay attention to when we're generating that XML sitemap. So the default is 0.5. 1.0 is the highest priority when setting that priority, and then you just set that last modified date as well. There are several tools that you can generate your sitemaps with rather than trying to hand code something or come up with something on your own. There's a few tools out there. You can use these. If you're running WordPress, there's also some additional tools at these URLs here that will help you to generate those sitemaps within WordPress. So the importance of these sitemaps is that you're receiving the more complete indexation of your site. This is where the search engines are going to hit first. It's the first point of entry for those robots a lot of time, and you need both the XML and HTML signals for the search engine. It helps with the speed that new content gets indexed, and it helps to control that path priority and send the search engines in the right direction. So some examples of good sitemaps. You can check all these out. Edmunds I really like. They do both alphabetical and categorical sitemap. That's a good example. The rest of these are pretty good. But if you go and check out some of the large companies and large websites and just look for their sitemap and see what they're doing, it's very common to find mistakes in the sitemap area, and it's such an important SEO tool. Take note of the good examples like Zappos. They do a very nice job of doing things, again, by alphabetical as well as categorical, and they break it down to sub-sitemaps because they do have thousands and thousands of pages. So this is an example of a good sitemap on a large site. And on a very large site, this, again, is one of your most important SEO tools because you distribute that link equity and authority and determine where the spiders are going to crawl throughout your site. So a few tips, and optimization tips and best practices. Call your sitemap sitemap. Seems logical, but sometimes gets overlooked. Organize your sitemap in a logical fashion. Again, categorical, alphabetical, these are good ways to do it. Use descriptive anchor text, but don't get out of control. I've seen a lot of florists do this, using city, state, plus flower, flower delivery, etc. Getting a little bit too aggressive with that anchor text. Don't get too aggressive, but use your descriptive text in there where necessary. Limit the links to 100 to 400 links for the first level for the index page sitemap and less than 150 for the second level. These are pretty good rules of thumb. I wouldn't say they're written in stone, but these are pretty good rules of thumb as far as how many links on a page the spiders will actually index. 100 to 400 is a good range if you're in that 1,000 to 10,000 page type website. You know, if you have a smaller website than this, obviously you're going to have a little different numbers there. If you're less than 100 pages, you can do it in all one sitemap. If you're 200 or 300 pages, you can probably still do it in that one sitemap. But if you get into the 1,000, 5,000 page type of website, you're going to have to organize those sitemaps by subcategory. And then you can actually do external links to your sitemap. I think this is something that's overlooked and it isn't done very often, but it is a good way to get spiders into your site, to send that signal that this is the sitemap, and to distribute the link equity and have the crawl path priority be correct for the spiders, for them to go to the correct pages that you want to rank well, that you want to be indexed regularly, and you want to rank highly. You have a lot of control over these things with your sitemap. Make sure to make use of this valuable tool. Within WordPress, again, there's some plugins and sitemap creators there. Make sure you're creating those sectional sitemaps, and you can do sitemaps for different content groups. So an overall review of the best practices for sitemaps. This is the first place that the search engines are going to start crawling, so make sure you do a good job of using that sitemap to lead them around your site so that you make full use of those crawl cycles. It's not just navigational. This is helping the the search engines get through your site and determining their priority for where they're going to crawl based on that interlinking, based on the way that you link your internal anchor text, based on the way that you link your sitemap, and your sitemap should absolutely be linked from every page. You're going to have an XML version and an HTML version. The HTML version should be linked from the bottom of every page, as well as the XML version, and the sitemap in the HTML version should always be called sitemap. It's going to guide the spiders through the site. Again, make use of this valuable tool.